making your way in the world today, you really need a pod. Why don't you put your headphones in and give this one a shot? Wouldn't you like to just listen away and go to a place where everybody knows who you are? Listen to two guys brew, ha ha. Cold Street Brewery and Full Buddy Cast, two of the greatest names. Why don't you go and listen to this episode? All right, everyone. Thanks so much for listening to the episode of Full Buddy Cast presents Brew Ha Ha, brought to you by Cold Street Brewery, 1627 Cold Street. Go say hi to Sean McDonald. Go say hi to Chris or Emily,
Rachel,
Sam, whoever,
Joe,
and maybe you. If you want to become that permitted pourer, 3-hour class and get
that is a good point. We are still looking for people to come out for
Think of yourself like a Domino's or an Uber driver, where you don't have to do it 5 days, 7 days a week, just 1 day, 2 days.
Yeah. Just bring the ha-ha and the brew.
And the brew. And then for those listeners out there, and you have the Full Buddy Cast or the Brew Ha-Ha shirt, 15% off if you wear this shirt in to Cold Street Brewery. And then also, if you don't have any gear, just go ahead and take a picture of yourself in front of the Cold Street Brewery sign and then tag yourself in on Facebook and just talk about how great of beers you're having. And all the fun you're having.
You don't even have to say that.
You don't have to say that.
You just have to tag in.
You can say they're horrible, but just tag yourself in.
Say that you're there. I've been to this place.
All right. So anyway, that voice over there is Sean from Cold Street.
Over there.
Over there.
Is that the left speaker?
And that voice over there
is the right speaker.
Is John pronouncing the last name Sleight?
Slate.
Jon Sleight from John's. I got to read his shirt. I'm glad he wore his shirt. John's Homebrew and Wine Supply. Now, my wife is going to punch me in the face later because she's going to say...
Because we haven't talked about his wine
supply. The wine supply.
Yeah. You make wine too? I imagine so.
I make a little bit of wine.
Yeah.
I'd say I make enough wine to be dangerous to winemakers with advice.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a part of this industry, and I like being able to help. Sure. I have everything for home winemakers.
Okay.
Winemakers oftentimes will start out doing a little bit at home and then get to a point where they kind of outgrow me.
I mean, that would be the same as a brewer, right?
Yeah.
The same as me.
Yeah, that's kind of true. No, go ahead.
Okay.
But yeah, we definitely have everything needed. And especially summertime when people's fruit gets ripe, we get a lot of people in the store saying, I've got all these extra blackberries. And
so then you're just looking for the right yeast. You're getting your different yeast to make it go with the blend.
Exactly. Yeah. So we've got all the stuff to help get people going on the right foot. And
for sure.
And do our best with that. And then also have kind of a network of people that know more about wine than me. So when I get questions, I'm definitely a beer expert. Beer is definitely my sweet spot. But I make a lot of mead as well. And so I can advise people on mead a bit. But also I've got mead experts, people like John Oakgard or Brian Sprouse, people that really know their stuff.
Brian Sprouse is just upgrading his stuff out there at, what is it, KLT?
I think it's called, KVLT.
KVLT Meadery, yeah.
Yeah, it's been neat seeing them grow.
Yeah,
and those guys are definitely the experts. So people that I can refer people to when I start getting questions that are a little beyond me. And stuff. So, but it's definitely a big part of our business when we started the business, I didn't want to leave that out. And a lot of customers that were customers of Larry's, previously that need someplace to go. And I wanted them to have a place to go.
I know. Yeah. Unfortunately, Larry's Brew Supply is no longer in business. So that's, kind of created a little void there. Great spot. Always had been for a long time. It's just a matter of just economics of the times.
Yeah, it was when I started brewing. It was really the center of the brewing world.
For sure. I remember I've been going to my old man's been dragging me down there since I was, a toddler. Yeah.
And
definitely where I got my start from too. Yeah, I was going down there and talking beer and and wine. So my old man does wine, and then he never did beer, and that's where I started doing beer, because it was one of those like, well, I do the wine, you need to do the beer, and then I started doing it, and it's like, then he started dabbling in it. Like I always did it better. It's like, yeah, it's a little dust off the shoulder on me.
The family there was a huge help to me in starting my store too. I was going to start my own store before they decided to close. I had been working there a couple of years, and like I mentioned before, I was kind of just tired of sitting in traffic. I decided I was going to do it, but I wanted to stay on extra. I knew that they had some hard things happen business-wise.
And it's not a competition. Like, you're going in a different area. It can even... Because I've heard that several times, too. It's like, it's like me with the brewery. Like, we're in the same area, but we attract everybody to that area, and we don't necessarily carry everything, right? So going to a different place and picking it up here, it's like, sorry, I don't have it, but I'll pass you off to this person that's an expert in that field or has that sort of supply.
Yeah. They, when they did decide to close, I hadn't quite opened up yet, and so they sold me all the fixtures that I needed, grain bins, all of the stuff that I needed. I was planning to get elsewhere because I was hoping they'd be able to stay open.
The blue recipe bins.
Exactly, Nice. And then they also, Betty Reifenberg and the rest of the family was just huge. When I'd have questions like, where do I go to buy this? There'd be people that I could call right at the other end of the phone, Vance and Angie, who... were just a big help to me in getting started. So I owe them a ton. And one of the things I'm proud of is being able to just keep that little bit of legacy of Larry's alive in what we're doing.
I always have the hugest respect is, you don't need a handout. You just need a hand up. And anybody that does that is always,
Absolutely. In fact, that's one of the things that I think is coolest about this industry. Like you mentioned David from Half Lion and talking to him, and coming from the music store industry, like I did, was very competitive, and our competitors. I didn't want to be that competitive guy, but I knew the person on the other side was doing that, and I hated it. I just never liked it, and that's why it took almost 30 years. But eventually, I burned out on it. In this industry, the competitors help each other, and they want each other to succeed. And I have great relationships with the other homebrew shop owners, and I love seeing the breweries where if you run out of a certain hop, you can call your neighbor and he's going to drive it over to you. And that's awesome, man.
And that's actually why we have a great relationship too, because I've even reached out to you. I'm like, hey, I need a lot. Like, I'm coming in here to take 55 pounds. That's a whole bag from you. I hate to do it because I know that's going to but it's like the reach out, and it's the respect, like back, like just, we're all trying to just help each other move along on that sort of thing. Yeah.
We're all in the same club, on the same side when it comes down to it.
Now, it sounds like we're going to get into this in a second, but who were your mentors into this? I mean, other than Larry's, like who helped you get to where you're at? Was it Larry's, or was it, with your knowledge, as well?
Larry's definitely helped me get a start with it. But I had a coworker named Ken Powers that when I worked at music centers, he was a brass instrument repairman, but really experienced brewer. And it was real cool being able to come to him and talk to him. And when I had questions, and then he helped me with my first all grain setup. And so he was definitely a mentor to me. And then once I started working at Larry's and got to know more of the people in the Impaling Ailers and some of the really good brewers there, there's a whole bunch of people in that area that I learned a ton. And then teaching the classes, when I was teaching there, I had to learn stuff, make sure I knew what I was going to teach other people.
You learn by teaching, right?
Yeah.
When those questions come out, you're like, oh, I never thought of it in that angle.
Yeah.
And so and then after that, who have you mentored in a sense who's taken, some of your courses, classes, what do you want to call it, and then have gone and done their own thing and started their own breweries, or maybe just their own little home brews? And
yeah. Great question. I'm not sure. I think that's a tough one to answer. I think I help a lot of people in small ways. I don't know any that I've really been instrumental in them getting started who's now take to the next step big, but I know probably hundreds of people or lots of people who come to the store
So I'd love to step in on that. So I've frequented, like when I was a toddler, I went to Larry's Brew Supply, and I took their class. It was prior to you teaching it, but then I went south, like. So growing up in this area and my dad had always gone to that shop, it's like they knew him, and anytime he came in there, I was recognized as being like connected to him. And me, I want to be independent. I want to be my own person. I didn't like that sort of thing. So I went south and I went to Longview, Batters Brew Supply, BADER, apostrophe S, Batters Brew Supply. And I took several of their classes, so they have 3 different levels to their classes. So they have their basic beginner, and I went to that one, and I'm like, well, this is kind of a joke. Like, why am I even sitting in this? Like, I knew that when I was a baby. The next level is a little more advanced, and then they have the third one where basically the second one is kind of the same. Like, you go in there and it's like all these other home brew supply or home brewers are coming in there, and they're like, well, this is kind of how we handle it. This is our, the different things that you run into, the problems that you run into, and this is how we fix them. In the third level, it was legit. Like, everybody brought in their beer and like, hey, I did this beer and there's a problem. How do I fix it? Which was always like me being the first time being there is like, well, I came to a class. I thought I was going to learn something. But at the same time, you do when you sit in a whole circle of people that are, they all have their different levels of knowledge and they have their different levels of experience. So then you're all kind of like collaborating together. And that honestly was probably my favorite class because everybody kind of, you don't really know. Right. There's a lot of things that happen that you're just kind of, you're speculating. Well, did you do this? It's problem solving. It's like, triage, like checking it down. Like what happened here? What happened there? And that was a great class, great experience. So always a shout out to them. Yeah. They're pretty far south.
They're a great store. They're down in Vancouver now.
Oh, Vancouver.
Or at least their main location is in Vancouver.
Yeah. Yeah.
But stopped in there year or two ago when I was down there so I could see their store.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Yeah. I always shout them out.
We got a lot of other good stores too in the area. Micro Homebrew up in Kenmore is a great store.
Yeah.
Tony up there does good. And Sound Homebrew in Georgetown.
Yeah.
And
right
just about each
Avenue.
Neighborhood. There's one in Mount Si. There's one in kind of Nala Valley of Tacoma. Beer Essentials down in Lakewood. And so lots of people wanting to help support homebrewing.
That's good. Now, have you noticed if it's been people that usually contact you or come into the store or email, whatever, they've been doing it for years, or they're just starting out, or is it a mixture?
It's all across the gamut. There's a lot of people started during the pandemic. It's definitely something that picked up. So a lot of people,
something to do when you're bored.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. When you're sitting
like,
at home,
I always wanted to do this.
Yeah. So there's a lot of new brewers out there right now. It's also sometimes it's not the thing for everybody. So some people will start and then kind of burn out on it or not want to put the time in or just go buy beer.
You realize, you realize this might be a little bit quicker and easier.
It's like, at first, well, that was when I was younger. It was like super cheap. It was so much cheaper to just go and buy it and ferment it versus, buying it in the store now. But now domestic is so cheap that it is. Anyway, so that does lead into like one of my questions that I'd love to throw at you is as a bar or as a beer tender, I get a lot of people that come in. It's like broken record. I have the same questions that are asked over and over again. But then occasionally I get those like really random kind of funny ones like, no. I wanted to know, like, what are some of the most common questions that you get as owning a home brew shop?
And this could be part of the ha-ha of it. So if you get the same thing like over and over, like, hey, listen, I get this question all the time. So, there's probably two, although neither one is a giant ha-ha. But the most common question is somebody pitched their yeast 3 days ago and they're not seeing any bubbles in the airlock. And so what am I doing? Did I kill my yeast? Did I ruin my batch? Is it, and the
correct answer is one. It's usually it's going to take off, but in most cases it probably already has. And the question I ask is, have you checked to make sure your lid's snapped down all the way? And then they snap it down. Oh, hey, it's bubbling now.
It's escaping somewhere else.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to kill your yeast when it comes right down to it. Sometimes it dies off. There. Yeah, oftentimes people are making a batch where there's more sugar than the yeast can handle, and the yeast has got to grow, and it's just going to take a couple extra days, and that's not unusual to happen also. So eventually they get to see the bubbles in the airlock, and everybody's happy. Another one I get is kind of more on the geeky side of things, but I'll get calls from people saying, my beer stalled out. It's finished at 1.032 and it won't go any farther. And I say, did you taste it? And say, yeah, it tastes fine, but it's at 1.032. And then I know they're checking it with the refractometer, which you can't do post fermentation. Yeah. And that's kind of more beer geek thing. But if they say it stalled at 1.032, I know that's how they're testing it. You got a refractometer for your birthday. Yep. Which is a great tool to have for taking all kinds of pre-fermentation measurements. Yeah, if you want to take last runnings and pre-boil gravity and all of those kind of things. But once there's alcohol in the solution, it changes the way the light bends through it and skews the reading. And you can put it into conversion formulas and figure it out. But you should tell people, get a hydrometer and test it, and you'll find out it's fine. Yeah. Your beer's good.
You're right there. Yep.
How long do you let them get through it? Because see, I we all have the same questions in whatever area we work in. Where we already know within the first answer, 4 words that they're saying, you're like, you already know the answer to that. Do you cut them off and go, listen, buddy, just take a deep breath. This is what it is. Or do you let them just full vent for like their 2, 3, 4 minute story, and then you give them the answer?
I'm probably more on the let them vent side. Yeah. But it's different for everybody. You kind of got to just take each person.
Judge the personality.
You never know. There could be some other part of their story. So I usually will try to really listen to what everybody's saying, so that way I can really have an idea where they're coming from. Make sure, in the end, the goal is that I solve their problem.
Have you ever been...
You're working like a mechanic, so you got to take everything in, because, that first thing, you're like, you jump to it, but you're like, oh, well, wait a minute. If there's a second thing, you put those 2 things together, then it's...
Yeah, there might be something more. Yeah.
Have you ever been stumped? And if you have, how did you get your answer? Did you go online? Did you call somebody? What did you do?
I go to a book called How to Brew by John Palmer, which I sell at the store.
Oh, true. You're not making a joke. You're like, How to Brew.
Total truth.
I have that book, yeah.
Yeah, everybody should have it. I mean, Two Brooks, if you have a brewing library, you should have... Yep. Well, if you're an old brewer, you should have The Joy of Home Brewing by Charlie Papazian.
Fuck yeah.
And you should have How to Brew by John Palmer. It's kind of the new version of that. And he's on, I think, his 3rd or 4th edition now. Yep. And it's just a great reference book.
Charles Papazian's only on, his 5th version since 1970. So
yeah.
Kind of the same lines.
So very often, though, I'll go to that just to make sure that I'm giving the right answer, or to make sure I thoroughly know the answer. But there's also tons of other resources too, other books. Sometimes I'll even, if I'm trying to work on a clone recipe for somebody, I'll reach out to the brewery and ask questions, and they're usually anywhere from relatively helpful to totally, here, I'll send you the recipe helpful.
Really?
Breweries are wide open. Like, it's open book. Like, your water, your area, your system is so different that here's the recipe, take it.
And everybody's individual fermentation is different. So you're never going to be able to make the exact same beer. Yeah. So there's a lot of artistry that goes into taking the exact same ingredients. Yeah.
Well, and I always want to point out that when he talks about the brew library, I don't think a lot of people really realize that if you go to my bar at the 1627 Courier Herald building and you look up the shelf above the bar, those are all those books up there. And for anybody that's a beer geek, they look up there and like, oh yeah, I got that book. I got that book. I got that book. I got that book. Yeah, because I'm a beer geek too.
That's good. Right now, John's pulling out a third one. John, what is this one called?
So this is Wise Uncle.
Wise Uncle.
Which is not a recipe I have at the store because I don't know if I could actually brew this one again.
This was one of the ones that you were talking about earlier where you were saying that this could have been the weirdest brew that you've ever done.
Well, sounds good.
He figured it out immediately. This guy's been in a band or two. He knows how to work a microphone.
Yeah, so this came out of a mistake.
The titty brew going on right now.
Not yet.
Sorry, I had to take a drink. So I messed up. No, I had a customer who was brewing 2 beers. He was brewing a Marzen style, which has a lot of Munich malt in it, and he was brewing a wheat beer, which was supposed to be a light colored beer with mostly malted wheat in it. And I put them both in the same bag, not realizing he was actually ordering 2 separate beers. And so now I had this bag of a whole bunch of grains that were Munich malt and wheat malt, and said, well, and then some chocolate malt and stuff that was in it as well. And so it's like, well, what am I going to do with this? I had another bag that had some Crystal 120 and some chocolate malt that was another mistake. They can't really see the air quotes when I do that, can they?
It's hard for podcasts.
Yeah. And so I just decided, well, okay, what do I have to add to this to make a good beer out of it? And I wanted to do a lager. I had some space in my chest freezer at home that I do my lagering in. And so, and I kind of wanted to do a Marzen style beer, which was not something I've done a ton of. So I did it and lagered it for a little while.
So what time of year was this too?
This would have been just this past winter. Okay. So
I mean, going into Oktoberfest, I mean,
just
blended into that.
If I was smart, I'd brew it a Marzen in March so that it's ready in September, but I never am. I usually start it in end of August, like a lot of people. But so it's pretty dark. Again, falls in about the 6.5% range.
So I'm just gonna talk to the crowd here because both of these two have just said that it's super dark, but I still feel like you can still look through it. So you had mentioned kind of before, it's kind of more like a box. So it is kind of more of like the amber brownish color.
And kind of ruby.
You can see it.
I can ruby highlights.
Yeah.
And definitely because it's a lager, you can totally see through it. There's no cloud. It's really crystal clear. You're great at clarifying your beer.
I use gelatin a lot in the fermenter to try to do that on beers that I want clear.
Yeah.
Is that a pro tip?
Didn't put any in the hazy, but
That's one of my biggest mistakes on the hazies is I always, throw clarifying agents in there. I'm like,
it's such a habit.
It's like it's robot form. Yeah.
The other thing I did that was kind of weird with this one is that since I was just doing an experimental beer, I just used up hops that I had in my freezer that needed to get used up, and so has a late edition of Centennial, which is really unusual in this sort of beer. Really? You don't usually see that. So it's
I don't
not big. So
it tastes good.
So it's very faint. I don't get it. I would think
it's
all traditional like Eastern European. It's
good stuff.
Yeah, it definitely has that character to it. So I'm pretty proud of it. I like it a bunch.
It's a good beer,
guys. This is the part of the episode where I got to remind everyone this is our second episode. We've had a hazy, we've had a wit, and now we're having a dark lager, right?
Yeah.
And I'm starting to feel it. So I want to do my best to stay on the rails and just answer these questions. The cool thing about
which at the end of the day, like it's a 5%, 6%.
It's moving up. We should have went the other way. But
if we went the other way, though, the wit would just be like, oh, this is like a glass of water.
That's true. That's true. I will throw this out here. Jon has been super responsible. Like he's been really letting us like really dive in, and he's been like
he wants us to drink his beer.
I do know myself, and I know I got to drive home.
You did a good job. I'm just gonna say you're very responsible,
right?
I'm definitely the small sample, have a flight guy, as opposed to go pound a couple 16-ounce guy.
So Jon, now you were talking about your wife and kids, right? How old are your kids?
Oldest is going to turn 30 this weekend.
You do not look it. You had your kid when you were 8. Okay. That explains some of the Slayer stuff. Just kidding. So 30 this weekend?
Yeah. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And then I have two stepdaughters. One will be 30 later in the summer, and they've been my daughters for a long time. So,
sure.
In my mind, they're my daughters.
Right. Yeah.
And another one, I want to say 27.
My goodness.
So they're all grown ups and living their own lives and doing things I'm real proud of. It's really neat to see.
That's
the only problem is they live a long ways away. The closest one is Roslyn, another one in Missoula, Montana, and another daughter in Waterford, Michigan. So life is kind of taking them
it's a progression.
Elsewhere.
You just go over the top of the mountains and you just keep going east.
Yeah.
And then you come back and hit them back.
It's a long road trip, it sounds like.
Yeah. We do it in one spurt at a time.
So we talked last episode, music, and we talked about, obviously what you're doing with your brewery and wine supply, but what are your other hobbies? Like, do you fish? Do you play cards? Do you go hiking? Is there anything else that you do other than that? I feel like those two things would take up the majority of your time.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. I love getting out and golfing when I can.
Oh, you're a golfer. Okay.
Don't golf a ton, but
but that's your sport to go out and enjoy.
If I can get out once a month, I'm a pretty happy guy.
Nice.
It's great walk. Good for just staying healthy as you get older.
Yeah.
Healthy, open the mind up, just, especially if you're walking too. No
you're just golf course is a beautiful place.
You learn some cuss words too. You learn your cuss words again. What else? What else other than that?
I got a skateboard in the back of my car every now and
then.
See,
I knew it. I saw the Converses and I knew it. I knew it. The longboard, shortboard?
Shortboard.
Shortboard.
Yeah. I was a half pipe skater back when I was a kid.
Really?
So I still love, we didn't have all the parks like these kids have now.
That explains the Slayer a little bit. So
I don't get to do that as much just because I'm not good at it.
Well, let me ask you.
I don't want to be the old guy out there with all these kids shredding and trying to keep my balance and stuff.
Know that they're looking at you going, thinking you're the coolest thing in the world. They're like, that's going to be me. Here. That's going to be me.
I like having fun. It hurts a lot more when I fall now, though.
I will say that. Did you ever get into snowboarding at all?
Just a little bit. I skied a ton when I was a kid. Skiing was really my main sport when I was a kid. And I loved that through 17, 18. I was a freestyle skier and competed and stuff. So as I got older, that's like a whole day away and it's expensive and stuff. And so I didn't go as much. Then few years back, I went and tried snowboarding, and I've only been a few times, but it came pretty easy just because of the skiing experience and skateboarding experience, and I've surfed a couple times, and I'm not very good at that either. But snowboarding was fun, but it's not something I'm really regular at. So
get drawn into.
And I love learning, so I'm going to keep asking you these off the wall. Yeah. Okay, so. What was your skateboard of choice back in the day? Like what did you purchase when you were a kid? And to now?
So when I was a kid, I loved Dogtown stuff. Jay Adams was my hero. Tony Alva, all the Dogtown people. So I had a Jay Adams Z-Flex back then. I was on a skateboard team for a BMX store, and part of that was some friends had a skateboard company. And so we made a model for me my nickname was Street Rat after an old Ted Nugent song. So it was the street model skate. So that's what I skated a lot of times when we did stuff for that team. Several years back. So then I left that. Obviously, as I got older, I stopped doing that. When would have been 7 or 8 years ago, my wife and I were out walking our dog in the neighborhood and happened to look into one of my neighbor's yard and see that their pool was empty. And so what's a 50-year-old guy going to do? But I sprint home, steal my daughter's skateboard, get back, and the people were gone, of course. Yeah. So I went skateboarded in their pool, and that kind of started me back up again.
Yeah, they're just sitting on the beach in Florida watching their ring. They're just seeing this guy just going in and out.
What the hell is going on here?
So go, sorry.
Yeah, so I just recently bought a Tony Alva board, which I kind of wanted my whole life. And I skated. I wasn't going to be serious enough about it to buy a skateboard, but I still was skating on my daughter's old skateboard until one of the wheels broke. And then it was kind of, okay, maybe it's time.
Now it's time.
And so.
Now, one of my good friends, I don't know if you know him, he's sitting up there somewhere. Simon Woodstock. You ever heard of Simon Woodstock before?
I have not.
So he's back in the 90s. He was a guy that dressed up in the clown suit, and he would put trucks on his like boogie board. He was known for being the guy that would that would skate things that you put trucks on things that, like a stop sign, stuff that you normally wouldn't skate. But he had his own shoe and had his own board, but kind of the same, I don't know, the same area. Now you were a big music guy. You were talking about heavy metal. Did you ever get into like punk and ska when you were skating? In any of those? That kind of coincided a little bit with skateboarding as well.
Yeah. I didn't really then. It was hard rock at that time. Yeah. It was almost before I got into metal stuff. I mean, but, Ted Nugent, Led Zeppelin, stuff like that was really what we were listening to at that time. Those first couple Ted Nugent albums, I love them. Nowadays, I love, I don't know tons of punk stuff, but I love Social Distortion and I've taught some ska stuff to bass students and, the specials and stuff I just love and Sublime stuff like that has that kind of a ska kind of groove to it. I love that kind of stuff.
See, we talked last episode and I was like, hey, do you feel like you've lived like 7 different lives? And now, as we're getting into it, I'm like, I think he's lived like 18 different lives. Like that's crazy to be on a sponsored skateboarding team. Like that was like every kid's dream back in the day.
Yeah.
And how did you get involved in that? It was like neighbor kids?
I never made money doing it, but I got a bunch of free gear.
And you got to go do stuff. You got to go compete and stuff.
There.
Yeah. It was the neighborhood bike store opened up that sold skateboards. And so I was there all the time. And there was a group of us that were doing it. And they decided they wanted to put together a skateboard team. And so we were like the natural people to be it. It was us being our friends.
Now, bringing it back to the brewing current, you said competitions. I want to say in the first episode you were talking about, so you
host competitions.
You host competitions.
I don't specifically. Usually they're hosted by some of the various homebrew clubs around, and then I'm a drop-off point. So right now the only competition currently happening is Best of the Bay competition is in Bellingham. Okay. So most of the homebrew shops will have their clubs or the people that are going to enter around their area drop off here as opposed to having to drive them all the way up there.
This is the best of our south of the sound.
Yeah. And so then the competition will send somebody around to all the homebrew shops to pick up all the entries. So I'm a drop off point for a lot of them. And we try to sponsor them all as well. It's a pretty cool thing for the people that try so hard and work so hard at making beer as good as they possibly can at home. And there's some great homebrewers around. I mean, that make beer equally as good as any craft brewery.
Yeah, they're taking prizes for what they do because they put a lot of effort into it. And a lot of times the bigger guys did just kind of in cruise control, just putting beer out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's also easier for
putting just cruise control, put out just whatever.
Just do it.
And every once in a while we get like a solid episode like tonight. It's good. It's good stuff.
It's easier for homebrewers to experiment too, and
for sure they can use different ingredients that like on a large scale is too expensive to even dabble with,
and we don't have to worry about if it will sell or not too.
For sure,
and if it doesn't turn out bad or if it doesn't turn out good, you're dumping 5 gallons down the drain. Whereas if you do something that doesn't turn out good and you got to dump 300 gallons down the drain, that hurts. It hurts to dump 5 gallons.
Have you done it?
I could just imagine.
Have you done it?
I've dumped 5 gallons before. Yeah.
Did you wince a little bit?
Oh yeah. It's hard.
It's like I can maybe fight through it. No. Then you try to get it. Like no, can't fight through it.
It happens to everybody.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
But it doesn't happen as often anymore. And usually if it's beer that has to be dumped, it's a sanitization issue.
Some issue that popped up.
And you learn to improve on that as you go along.
For sure.
Do you, out of the 400 we talked about, we talked about maybe your most interesting brew. Do you remember your best? Like it was like, wow, this turned out way better than I thought it would.
Well, way better than you thought it would. Was the one we're drinking right now.
This is really good.
He had low expectations.
A lot of them turn out. I'm not going to say I'm surprised that they turn out good, but it's pretty cool. It's really cool to be able to know you had a glass of something, you try it, and you say, "This is fucking great."
Nailed it.
I made this, and it's great. And you get pretty proud doing that, and I could say that. More often enough, I'm pretty happy.
That's
about it,
good.
So.
Now,
so my experience, kind of the same thing. So I put out a lot of beers and stuff, and then I put them out in different restaurants and that sort of thing. And then I was up there sitting at Griffin and Wells. Shout out Griffin and Wells.
Sure.
Great little smaller spot. And up there having, eating some lunch, eating some dinner. I don't remember, but I ordered one of my beers, and I started drinking. I'm like, wait a minute. What did I order? This is a fucking really good beer. I'm like, You're like, well, you got your own beer. I'm like, oh shit! It was like a revelation. Like, oh shit! Never mind.
That's good.
Right. That's you could be proud of that.
Yeah,
Huh?
That's really good.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
Fucking made a good beer.
I have one recipe at the store. I call it Intergalactic IPA because I was listening to Beastie Boys when I brewed it, and it had Galaxy in it, and so I kind of was tying those in together.
Sure.
And I wasn't planning to make it a recipe for the store. I just wanted to try out this yeast I had gotten from White Labs and try out the Galaxy hops. So we brewed it, and we had some other great hazy beers in the fridge. We're members of a beer club called Tavor, and so I get some great hazies from Anchorage and we'd have one of those, and then I'd say, okay, well, I don't want to drink all of those, so I'm going to go get one from the tap downstairs, and I'd try it, and I'd be like, this is better. This is just amazing. It just kept blowing my mind. So had to put it in the recipe bin at the store. So
I like
so it's there now. So that was kind of a surprise. I mean, I wasn't expecting that, but every time it happens, it's just proud and happy to be able to drink good beer.
That's awesome.
Good beer is the best part. We kind of touched on events. I just wanted to throw out there do you have anything planned going into the summertime?
Yeah.
I mean,
and
obviously
actually,
it's still kind of a little restricted, but do you have any?
To step back about the competitions just a little bit. Mm-hmm. For the last year or so, competitions pretty much got put on hold because of COVID. There was a few competitions that figured out how to do the judging separately, and figured out ways and kind of set a template to where towards the end of last summer, some of the competitions were able to do that. Now, some of the competitions are starting to open back up. So there's definitely going to be, like I mentioned, Best of the Bay. There's a couple more coming at the end of the summer, and I was put those on our website. On the front page is a competition list with
nice links
for entering and that sort of thing. So
John'sHomebrewSupply.com.
John'sHomebrew.com. No supply. too much writing.
Yeah.
So that's not something I'm affiliated with, but something I definitely want to support.
Promote,
something that's happening kind of in the homebrew world, and
that's our community.
Pushing
out there.
As far as not much in the way of events in the store outside of, we just last week finally decided I wanted to open up and let people walk around in the store again. For the last year, we've just been doing pickup of will call orders, which thankfully it was a way we could do business,
right?
And make enough money to pay the bills and stuff, and also keep everybody healthy. Kept all of my employees healthy.
Safe. Yeah.
None of my customers caught COVID in my store.
That's good.
For sure.
And I probably was more careful than most places around.
It's better to be on the high end.
I felt good about it. And we were able to pay the bills. But I kind of miss having those interactions with people, and there's a lot of items in the store that didn't have eyes on them for a year and a half. And so this last week we opened back up.
Oh, I don't need that. But you see it, you're like, oh, I need that.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's been fun letting people walk around in the store again. And so for me, that's a big event.
Sure.
I also wanted to point out, so we were talking about where John's Homebrew Supply is. It's right off of, what's the main road there?
East Main.
East Main, right? The other big thing that draws you in is it's one of the last skippers in Washington State. So you go in there and you get all you can eat skippers, and then you go get some homebrew supplies, and then you go home and you
great.
And don't forget about Baskin Robbins too.
That's one of the last Baskin Robbins
too. Holy crap! You got 2 of the last.
Wow.
In the Washington State.
That's a good call.
But yeah, so it's on the map. Like if you try and Google, but you can always Google the Skippers. It's right.
There you go. Yeah. I used to use Safeway as a big landmark because there's a big old Safeway, and that Safeway closed now, and they moved to a different place. So now we're across the street from the old Safeway.
Okay, so I drove by that the other day. It has a Rite Aid, and it has the old Safeway across the railroad tracks. Right? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Down in Puyallup. Now, I used to work at that one. I would fill in there, though. I'd fill in there, though. So you're right down near there. Okay, cool. Yeah. All right. Well, that's a good little landmark for you.
Central Puyallup, yeah.
For you people out there that are like, well, what part of Puyallup? Well, if you go across the railroad tracks, take a little left coming off of, what is that, 167? Or
512.
512.
We're kind of between 512 and 410 and 167, kind of in that little
kind of that
corner.
Little triangle.
Gotcha. All right. Well, that's good. Now I know where you're at because I was just driving through there. My wife plays softball out in Puyallup, and so we were driving through there, going to Sumner because that's where my mother-in-law lives. And I just was there last week, and I didn't even know that I was that close to John. Did not know.
Well, now you know.
John's Homebrew Supply.
John's Homebrew.
If you're looking for beer or wine supplies.
Wine supply. Favorite wine. You haven't said your favorite wine yet.
Yeah, I'm not a big wine guy.
Neither am I, but if you have gun to head, you have to drink some wine. What's your favorite wine?
Something red. I mean, my wife knows a lot more about wine, so it's usually whatever she's going to drink, and I'll have a little bit of it.
Favorite beer? Favorite type of brew?
Oh, wow.
Like favorite beer, hands down.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to go.
He's like Bud Light. That's a joke. That's the ha-ha. No. Of course he wouldn't say it. That's what's funny.
Not in this room.
Yeah. No ha-ha there. Actually, honestly though, I'm a big believer in not beer shaming. Whatever somebody likes is fine, and I'm not going to ever look down on anybody. I'm not going to probably drink it, but
Sean's a big fan in shaming, period. Okay. And so beer is just one of those topics that he will shame people with.
So if I had to say my favorite beer, I'd probably go Pliny the Elder. I love IPAs, and I'm.
Have you ever made that trip for Pliny the Younger?
Never have. No.
Would you like to go next year?
Definitely.
I got a spot for you and your wife.
Thought of it, boy. Okay.
We go every year.
He's in.
Okay, we're there.
We go every year. It's
I think I've seen pictures of you there now that I think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I go every year.
I
did not go this last year. It wasn't COVID thing. It was just I was too busy trying to open my space up.
Yeah.
And kind of found out through the people that did go that it was but go every year.
It was definitely a different year for him.
First 2 weeks of February.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's definitely on our bucket list. So
John's in.
More.
Yeah. John, maybe I'll go. How close?
That would be great.
How close is it to Las Vegas? Is it Denver? Where's it at?
It's in California, Santa Rosa, California.
So a little ways away.
So I can drive there. Get to Vegas in probably 7 hours.
If he had a couple Pliny the Youngers, we could just tell him he was in Vegas.
Yeah, right? They're 12.5. Yeah.
And then, let's see, I had 2 other hard-hitting questions that were fast, that were going to be fast. So I said, your favorite beer to drink, your favorite... Okay, let's just do this. Let's go off the food. Let's go off the food one. Where do you like to eat in Puyallup?
Yeah. Shout out Puyallup. Where are you at?
Yeah. I love Powerhouse Restaurant a lot.
Oh, I do.
And they make great beer.
They make good beer, and they got a great happy hour. Yeah. Oh my god, they give you the calamari. Shit, it comes out on one of those little saucer plates, but it's like a
mound.
It's like a pow.
Wow.
And you're like, this is happy hour?
I had to kind of think about that because we really haven't been going
out. It's been a bit, right?
But we also have been trying to go out. We have the date night every Thursday night or thing. So in the past, we would go out and
get the Thursday
have
night.
A beer. But through the pandemic, we'd try to get a growler to go from a brewery down close to us, whether it's off Camber or would come up here to Luke's place to Lost Woods.
Lost Woods. There.
Yes.
We're just kind of trying to get around to that. And,
Luke
and then
Taps.
we've gotten food to go from whether it's the Ram or Powerhouse when they were closed for a lot of the time. But
yeah.
we also love Rainer Growlers and Cascades.
Cascades,
Yeah.
All right. A lot
Not
of shout outs
big food
there.
places,
I've
but
been trying to bring all of those guys onto the podcast. Right?
yeah.
We'll get them. We
Working
might even visit, like, so we're kicking around ideas of what we're going to do this summer.
Like start going to
go
people.
visit a place and then give a review, and maybe not do a podcast, but sit there, talk with the owner, talk with the brewer.
It's harder to get people to come.
That makes a lot of sense.
So that's why we really appreciate you coming up here, John.
Exactly,
because we understand we're
so
we're a little up the hill, and a little off the beaten path. So.
And as we go out, we'll hit you up. This is like a 45-minute conversation. Those will be like 5-minute conversations when they get all edited down. So we're not going to bring everything. We're just going to go and have some beers and talk.
Right on.
A little bit. So, well, let's do shout outs real quick, and then we'll move on out. I'll go first, though. I'll give you a chance to kind of collect your shout outs, and I'll give you a chance to collect your shout outs. But I'm going to shout out. I should have thought about this a little bit. I'm going to shout out those people that are down there on Cole Street. And you know what? That's a shout out for sure. When you guys come out and say hi, I appreciate that. I do appreciate that. But I want to shout out the people that are on social media that will comment and like and share with Full Buddy Cast and Cole Street and Brew Ha Ha and Enumclaw Discussion Board. You know who you are. But that's typically like Holly and Desi and just all the random people that will Ira, that will just get on there and just post and share. Christina Woods, I don't know her. That's Mama Sasquatch that I don't know at all. But one night she shared like
totally
20 memes. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But go with her on that one. Also I want to say Michelle Meeks. And then just these random people that I'm meeting and that I enjoy. It's just the part of like, that's what helped get me through the pandemic, was just to kind of like still not only entertain but be entertained, right? We're all sitting at home, we're all sitting on the couch, we're all trying to do life from home, whether it's working or whatever, the best we can. But anyway, I just appreciate everyone there, and I want to shout out all the Patreons for Full Buddy Cast. We're at 11, hopefully to get to 12. Looking for that 12th one. Lucky number 12. I don't know if that's a lucky number. No, 13 is a horribly non-lucky number. So 12 is definitely lucky because it's right before 13. Sean, go ahead.
Oh, I'm next.
You're the shout-out.
I definitely want to shout out my brand new beer tender, Sam Smith.
Oh, yeah.
Diamond in the Rough.
Oh, the singer?
Yeah, no.
Oh.
She came on, like, honestly, Diamond in the Rough. Like, I am so thankful that she came to me. She's a keeper for sure. She does everything that's needed to be as a beer tender. She gets out there. She's very friendly. She's very she's knowledgeable on beer. She's, very straightforward on her interaction with people.
Yeah.
She's amazing.
She was Emily's great too. And shout out to Emily.
All my girls.
But when we were down there for the cruise, I think Sam was hanging with Emily. Emily was has a little more experience probably, but Sam was not getting blown out of the water. She was hanging.
Nope. She's great. Great addition to the club.
That's good. And now John. Shout out.
Well, I've mentioned him a few times, but the whole Reifenberg family, which is Larry's family, was just huge for helping me learn how to run a homebrew store and this part, and then being so helpful to me in my business when I was getting started. And whether it's Vance and Angie Reifenberg, Betty Reifenberg, Larry's wife, the Elston family as well. They were great. And then I said it the last time, but everything good in my life is because of Sarah, because of my wife.
Awesome.
And I feel a stronger person because of that. So I couldn't go without mentioning her again.
For sure.
That's awesome. And I can't wait to meet her when we go down in February, all as a group. to what was it called again?
Pliny the Younger release.
Pliny the Younger release.
It's at Russian River Brewery.
Russian River
in Las
Santa
Vegas.
California,
Santa
Vegas,
Santa Rosa,
California. We're all going to be there hanging
Santa
out.
Rosa, and they have a second location in Chandler.
It was Sarah. It was Sarah, right? You said it's Sarah?
Yeah, it's Sarah.
Can't wait to hang out with her. We're going to have a good time because we're a group now. All 4 of us.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else that goes on your group? Who else goes with you?
Yeah, you got a whole group of people that go.
Yeah, so I go down with the
the bottle shares, Luis and all that? Yeah.
Castro that's been on here. Terry that owns Boots Bar. Him and his girlfriend Sarah, they come down, and then Luis's brother-in-law Tyson Beers and his sister Ernie Beers. They're amazing. And then we have.
I feel like we're renting a bus at this point now that you mentioned all this.
Yeah, so we have a minimum of 6 people that go down there.
Yeah.
We have the Canadians went down one year. They might come down next year, but
okay.
I don't shout them out because they're Canadian. Love everybody.
He finally said something funny. It was the end of the episode. We're on the second one, last minute, and finally Sean says something funny, which is good. It saved everything.
I'm bringing the ha-ha.
Absolutely.
Brew ha-ha right there.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great week. Go hit up Cole Street Brewery. Go hit up Jon's Homes Brewery and Wine Supply. That's 3 beers deep. Me saying that. Credit to me. And then also, please listen to the rest of the episodes this week. Appreciate you guys. Have a great day and take care.
Right on. Thanks for having me, guys.
You're welcome,
Cheers.
Jon.
Thank you. Cheers.
Making your way in the world today, you really need a pod. Why don't you put your headphones in and give this one a shot? Wouldn't you like to just listen away and go to a place where everybody knows who you are? Listen to 2 guys brew ha ha. Cole Street Brewery and Full Buddy Cast, 2 of the greatest names. Why don't you go and listen to this episode?